Rainier Valley Historical Society's mission is to collect, preserve, exhibit, and interpret the history and heritage of Rainier Valley and its people, and to promote public involvement in and appreciation of its history and culture. Our geographic boundaries are from Dearborn Street to the city limits and from I-5 to Lake Washington. Our office is located at 3710 South Ferdinand Street in the Columbia City neighborhood of Seattle.
Doing an interview with Dale, how do you pronounce your
Leuthold.
Leuthold. And she has some artifacts from her stepfather, Frederick Matheson.
And the date is?
And the date is, what is it? January 26th, yes.
1995.
Okay.
Yeah, well now this is a pipe for smoking tobacco, which has some sort of a ceramic bowl with a metal lid on it and carved wood and an ivory mouthpiece. Frederick said that this was from his grandfather, Jurgen, who brought it from Germany, and that his grandfather was a ship's carpenter, and he used to work on Bainbridge Island loading wood. And the grandfather settled in Port Madison, and his son was John Frederick Peter Matheson. They bought a homestead on Lake Washington, and by 1896 they owned only 40 acres there. Somehow they had sold off some of the land by that time.
We have some information on the people that bought property. They sold quite a bit of that between them, and people bought up more, and so forth. So we have some records on that.
Good. I also have two fairly large photographs in beautiful ornate frames with curved glass front. And this is a picture of Frederick and his first wife, Ada, their wedding picture. And the second one is Frederick's mother and father, their wedding picture. And so they're matching frames of the two generations of the family in photographs. They're really unusual, very, very interesting. This is another photograph. This is a photograph of an old man in a wagon drawn by two horses. And Frederick said that this was his grandfather in the wagon that they used to deliver goods that they grew on the homestead in Lake Washington into Seattle to the store they had to sell them in Seattle. So this was the wagon that they used to take the produce from Lake Washington to downtown Seattle to the store. I don't know date on that. Let me see, what else have we got here? I have some photographs of the house on Lake Washington. The photographs have negatives with them, so
Yeah.
you can make copies of
great.
it. But this is one view of the house.
This is the homestead that
Mhm.
they had. It's a white house. Looks like a two-story white house.
Mm-hmm.
The lake in the background to the left.
And this is a picture of Frederick and one of his cousins. He told me the name of the cousin, but I do not remember. And they grew this pampas grass, which they thought was very stylish. They, considered themselves to be really stylish to have the pampas grass. This is another picture of a group of people at a little fountain that they built at the homestead. And I do not know who the people are, but they're relatives.
The attire they had on, the dresses they had are interesting.
Yeah, the little girls with ringlets in their hair.
Yeah.
And this is a photograph in the house on Lake Washington of Frederick's mom and dad. And they had apparently been opening gifts. He thought it might have been wedding gifts. And some of them are set on this table. There's a china tea set on the table. But I thought it was real interesting, too, how the hardware looks like
On the
ship's
door.
hardware.
Yes. And this piece of furniture, the table, is interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you want to turn it off till we get another bunch to
Okay.
go through?
Yeah, okay.
Frederick chatted with me from time to time, and if I happened to have something around, I would sometime write down these notes. He said that in 1892, his dad went to the Yukon, that they needed money, and his dad figured that he could have a big strike and make it rich, and
Now, this
so
would
forth.
be, this would be Andrew, Senior. The way we
Frederick's
look at
dad.
it. Yeah, and that would be Andy Jr.'s dad, too, you see, so that would be Andy Senior, as we knew him, Andrew, because we knew Andrew as the senior. We didn't know the grandfather, so.
Okay. And in 96, Frederick was born. In 1912 to 1914 is when his dad came back down and didn't go back up anymore. And I don't know why there's a time span, but that's the way Frederick said it. Frederick said that during the time his dad was in Alaska, that he and his mom sometimes lived with Uncle Andrew and Aunt Josie. And during the time his dad was gone, he and his mom and his dad got divorced, which was kept very quiet. It was, very secret. And then when his dad returned, his dad and his mom remarried. And Frederick at that time was about 20 or 21, and they lived at Port Madison for a while. Then they went to Juneau to live, and they worked for the Alaska Juneau Gold Mining Company. Then his mom and dad moved to Snohomish in 1917. His dad worked on a stump ranch and worked with apple trees and made cider. Frederick married when he was about 23, and he had a little boy. They lived downtown on Fairview, and his little boy died suddenly when he was still an infant. Uncle Andrew, Frederick's Uncle Andrew had two boys. They were cousins, and they died of the same thing that Frederick's baby died of. And Frederick always felt that they had bad genes and it was their fault, and he felt very guilty because he had this infant boy who had great pain and great suffering and died, and he had always felt it was his fault. He said the symptoms were that the child would have terrible gas, be on hands and knees screaming, and would hold his butt up. He'd just, have his knees all scrunched up in pain, and it was horrible. And there was a surgeon at the University of Washington named Dr. Don Palmer,
I know, yeah.
who was the best surgeon in Seattle, but he couldn't save the baby, and the baby died. Frederick Short Matheson was Frederick's grandfather, and he was married to Lydia Crum Short, who came from Champaign, Illinois. And they came to Seattle just after the Seattle fire, which was June 6, 1889. Lydia died. She returned to visit in Illinois, and she died there after a cyclone because the water supply was contaminated and she got typhoid. And so the water was bad, she got sick and died. Her husband, Samuel P. Short, and the P is for Peterfish, Samuel Peterfish Short, then came out to Seattle and stayed. Let's see, Josephine Crum Short was their daughter, who was Frederick's mom, and Vinnie Short married Norman Sims.
Oh, I knew them real well. They were close friends with my grandparents.
Really?
Sims. He's a little short man, kind of roly-poly, and just always happy, very pleasant person. Yeah.
Okay, so I also have a basket, which I'm going to keep. When they lived in Lake Washington, they usually went into Seattle every other week to buy things in Seattle, and there were always Indians selling baskets at 2nd and Madison on the southwest corner. And the women would sit there hour after hour and sell baskets. That's how they made their living. And they would buy these baskets as sort of a charity act, that these poor starving people who couldn't do anything but sell baskets. And they'd buy these baskets for 50 cents or $1. And of course the basket that I have now has been evaluated to be worth about $300.
That's it, right?
So, and at one time, Fred, they bought these every 2 weeks. They'd buy a basket as a charity act, and they didn't think of them as anything valuable or unusual at all, and they used them to store junk in and, put cookies in to give to somebody and all kinds of things of this sort, because they really didn't have a need for them. They were just being charitable to buy these baskets. Okay. When we were sorting through the things in Frederick's garage to sell at garage sale, he had a lot of china packed away, and I'd say, "Oh, gee, Frederick, this might be really valuable stuff. You shouldn't sell it at garage sale. We should get an expert to look at it." And he'd say, "Oh, no, that's nothing." And he said, "Now, this is something old." He said, "My grandfather brought it when he came from Germany. And it's I think a sugar bowl with a missing lid, and has some sort of a picture and some German writing on one side. And it's a picture of a monument, so I'm sure it has some sort of meaning to someone who knows, but Frederick thought that this was a valuable old piece."
Sure it is.
And I also have a little cup, a sort of Demitas cup, and I'm sure that this is maybe like from the 20s or something. Frederick worked on ships going up to Alaska, and he worked for the Alaska Line, and I'm sure this is one that he just pilfered from the ship. But I have thought it was real cute, but I don't have a real need for it, so I'll give it to you guys too.
Good. Very much appreciated.
Let's see, it doesn't have marks, it just, looks like a very neat. I was born in Montana. And my dad was in the Navy, and so we lived in Buffalo and North Carolina. My grandparents lived in North Carolina, and we lived in Texas, and we lived in California, and we lived in Nevada, and then we came out here. So I consider, we were out here by the time I was about 6 years old, so we lived a lot of places during my early years. And I consider the Pacific Northwest the center of the universe. Anybody who's sensible wants to live here. Well, there aren't that many sensible people. There's a lot of crazy people, so they'll stay away. So, I really like it here, and I'm fascinated by this history. And I think a lot because we moved around so much when I was young, and we never kept things. My family never kept things. That it just thrills me to see this historical stuff, this old stuff from the family. And, I really loved Frederick, and, he was probably a better father to me than my real father, although, I was completely an adult by the time I ever met him. But I really feel a lot of connection with his family and all his stories. And he gave me, for instance, this ring that I wear, which is Lydia and Sam Short's wedding ring. So it's Lydia's wedding ring that I wear. And, that just tickles me to think of, my step-great-grandmother's ring as something that I can wear. That sense of history is, real important and satisfying to me.
Great.
Well, we like to know.
after the 25 years when I retired from the U, I decided I'd work in industry for a while, that I'd look for some job that looked real stable, and, I'd work for 8, 10, 12 years, whatever, till I decided to retire. And that, I just wanted a nice job to pay the medical benefits and so forth. So I searched around and I found this company in Trenco, which is an environmental engineering consulting firm. They do environmental impact studies on mostly transportation things, highway projects and so forth. But it seemed to me a real stable kind of thing. It's a moderately small company, 100 people in Seattle office or Bellevue office, and looked like, a real stable place. Well, I worked for them for a year and a half. During the first year and a half, 12 people left sort of by attrition, and then first of the year they laid off 7 of us. It's just that the economy has gone down so much, and particularly the highway projects, which are governments, funded a lot, have gone way down, and they just can't keep people. So now I'm out there beating the bush again, looking for another place, and I've never in all my life been unemployed. I've not worked for certain times, like if I decide to take a year off to have a baby or something, but I've never been, laid off and not had a job when I intended to have a job. So it's a real different feeling after
Imagine it would be.
a long time of working to not have a job. Oh, here's something else that you might, it's too neat to throw away. It's this funny little box, and inside is a heating element for some sort of an electric heater. And I found it fascinating. And, isn't it interesting?
Yeah, it's an electric heater.
Oh, resistance coil?
Mm-hmm. Resistance coil. Porcelain coil.
Probably had a parabolic reflector behind it.
Probably. One of those, remember the round ones with
Yes.
the copper? And they had a coil similar to this. I don't remember the connection on it, but it was a coil like that. I'm sure that's what it's for.
But there were tons of things like this in Frederick's garage, and a lot of it he made me sell at his garage sales. These were wonderful garage sales.
They
But
must have been.
a few things were left after he died that, were still there, and I just, have kept them. So that's something else you can have that.
Type 130 element for Majestic Electric. Oh, Majestic, yeah. We used to sell Majestic here years ago. That was the one it just sit on, it didn't have any fan or anything, just a reflective type.
Yeah, I love hardware stores, especially they have one of everything.
No, that's nice. Oh, great.
This is what used to be a cloisonne vase. And, when I was cleaning out Frederick's basement, he again was going to toss it, actually physically put it into the garbage. I said, no, that's fascinating. What is it? Tell me. And he said that this was a vase that had been in their store downtown Seattle that had burned. And inside is a little note that Frederick said his mom wrote. It says, "This vase is a relic of the Seattle fire, June 6, 1889, from Mark 10 Susie's Bazaar on First Avenue." And it's, all crumpled. Most of the enamel has been burnt off, and it has some holes in it, but you can see the copper and you can see some remnants of the colors. And I think it's just fascinating when I hold that, and I just feel, so connected to the history of this place. And I think it's a wonderful relic.
Oh, that is.
It might have been all that they could salvage.
I don't know, but if it was a grocery store, it probably didn't have too many things that wouldn't burn.
And you have the name of the company, business, that's interesting.
Okay, this is an album where I started taking some of Frederick's photographs and putting them in the album. And I was doing this just as he was very ill at the time, just shortly before he died. And he didn't have a lot of energy to give me a lot of information, but many of these things he could identify for me, and sometimes he could give me dates. On the first page here is S.P. Short, which he dated July 1865. So that was his grandfather Short. And he has another picture of his grandfather as an older man, and grandfather Short and his cousin Norma, Frederick's cousin Norma. Then there's a picture of Grandpa Short all dressed up in his finest. And this was apparently when he went back to visit Illinois. And Frederick's comment was that this was a prosperous farmer from Illinois. He was showing off his prosperity. Next page has a family picture which has S.P. Short as a younger man and a group of 2, 4, 6, 7 other people who were just family. There's a separate picture of a woman that is not identified, but she was somehow a relative of Grandpa Short. Her dress is just outstanding.
Yeah, just looking at that.
Now these are pictures of Frederick in the house on Lake Washington. So there are a series of 3 of Frederick at 10 months old in 1897. 2 of them playing on the staircase, and another one where he's, I don't know.
It's a chair.
He's
pillow on
pulling
a chair.
a pillow from a chair. But again, I think it's really interesting to see that there is, apparently this is maybe on a porch because there's a brick facing there, and the woodworking on this stairway is just...
The rungs on
Yeah.
the railing.
He also has a copy of his birth announcement, Frederick's birth announcement, and the wedding announcement of his mom and dad. And they're old engraved, and they're just fascinating. These are 2 pictures of schools. This is
Oh my gosh.
B.V. Wilson Lakewood. This is June 1st, 1904, looks like.
Looks like it.
And Frederick is the 3rd from the right here. He could identify himself. Oh, it's Brighton School is
Brighton
what it
School.
says.
I don't think we have a picture of that. I don't remember seeing that anyplace.
And then this is on the front steps of the Dunlop School, 1905 and 1906, and this is Frederick, identified with his initials.
That would be second from the left at the bottom. Yeah. Well, I see his initials on it.
Probably my mom's in that picture too.
Oh,
That upper one.
Okay. Then we have some report cards that Frederick had saved.
That's nice.
Here is the first one. Let's see what date it is. Okay, this is the second half year, 1903-1904, and it has a whole variety of grades for the different months.
They used to do that. Yeah.
And again, here's a collection of grades. This is January 29th, 1906.
This one doesn't have a date. Well, it's grade 4, so it would be 1 year later.
Okay, grade 3 and grade 4. And special awards from school for not being absent or tardy. 1910 and 1912. And here's 1914 credit card where he got an E in geometry.
Oh.
Or maybe these are excellent. I don't know. That's excellent. It is excellent.
Because
Okay.
he would do well in science, certainly.
Right. Okay. Right.
Oh,
So,
the old Cleveland School, is it?
Franklin.
Franklin.
Now, that's the year it was built,
Oh.
1912.
Okay, and this was from Brighton School. This report.
Well, see, he would be, how old was he? He was at Franklin at that time, apparently.
Yes. He only went to school there 2 years, and he had to quit to get a job. He needed money.
See, my mother was a freshman at Franklin in 1912, so they were probably in the same class or real close.
Now, these are some pictures of Frederick's first wife, Ada, as a young girl, just a selection of her, and she really liked horses, and so she lived somewhere in that area around Lake Washington. We have pictures of Frederick and his mom, and they called this piece of land, they called Twin Firs, because it has 2 fir trees growing on it. And that was the very point of land right along the water on the Lake Washington property. 2 pictures of Frederick in his Army uniform. And then some pictures of his mom, Josephine, on a trip to California. So in 1918, she visited Oakland, and there were 3 photographs of that. Pictures again of Frederick and his wife when they were married. Let's see. This is a picture of, well, I don't know how to describe these pictures of the family. This is a picture of 5 people in it. John Sorensen is a family friend, and Rosa, S-C-H-A-A-D, Shad, a family friend.
This is from right to left on the picture.
Okay, and then down in front is Frederick's first wife, Ada, and his mom, Josephine, and I do not know who the man with Josephine would be. This may have something to do with the divorce, where Frederick's mom and dad were divorced and kept it secret from everybody, supposedly. But I'm sure, of course, the family knew about it. Because sometimes his mom would be with a man and he would not identify that man to me, and I think it may have been like a boyfriend or something. And Frederick was just too prim to, so he would say, I don't know who that is, I don't know who that is. This is a picture of Ada's family. So it's Frederick's mom, the second from the left, and some relatives of Ada. Frederick liked fishing and camping, and so we have all kinds of pictures of different areas where they camped. And his cousin Norma Sims and her husband, they went camping a lot together. And so they have these pictures from the early 1900s of camping.
This is George Comstock. That's one of the members of the Pioneers was very active in it, President Betty Comstock. I bet that was her dad. Because Comstock is not a real common name. And there's only one Comstock family in Columbia that I knew of.
Here are pictures of Frederick's mom and dad as older people when they lived in Juneau for a while.
Those are in a frame. It's from Juneau, Alaska. Winter and pond.
Yeah, photographers. These are some other relatives by marriage. Molly Reed was Ada's niece. Her sister was Dorothy Adams. And these are the children of Dorothy Adams. So it's Mark, Steve, and Anne with the 3 kids. Those are the only ones I've sorted and got in the catalog, or in the thing now. So here, what I have here is a shoebox full of all kinds of things, and they aren't sorted, so it's really difficult to do. We have, another report card. This is
I don't think we have to record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frederick's story about Matheson Place is that it was called Matheson Place because at the end of it was the Matheson's place, and that everyone knew it by that. And someone came to town, an Englishman, who got involved in local politics, and he was very wealthy. And he bought some property out there, and he didn't like the fact that this family had the street named after them. So he campaigned to get it changed to Othello, which he thought was a proper English and cultured
That's interesting.
thing, and that he paid off everybody in the world, and the city voted to change it to Othello. But it made all the local people just furious that this man had bought the street name change.
The moral of the story.
Okay, you can go.
Yeah, because I assumed that when we first talked, I thought that Frederick and the Andy Matheson, I call him Andy because he was the younger one, he's the one that had the florist shop there in Columbia City. And that was moved from the greenhouse that they had down on Seward Park Avenue. They left there and they moved over to Columbia City. And I can remember going down to that greenhouse, and that's where I thought it was his dad, which was Andrew Sr., that had the greenhouse.
Okay. What Frederick told me was that, of course, his name was Frederick M. Matheson. His dad's name was Frederick P. Matheson. And his granddad was Frederick S. Matheson, Short Matheson. Frederick Short Matheson. So there were three Fredericks, but they weren't junior because they had different middle names. And that's,
I wonder where
and Frederick said
Andy
he was an
Sr.
only
came
child.
in there, that Andrew. I thought, maybe I'm mistaken, but I can remember him just as clear
Yeah, well,
as possible.
when Frederick talked to me about relatives, there was always unease. He didn't really want to say too much about it. He was happy to talk about his grandparents coming from Illinois and coming from Germany. And he talked fondly and easily and comfortably about those people. But when I talked to him, asked him questions about the house on Lake Washington and such, he was uncomfortable. He made a couple cryptic comments the one time where he said that while his mom and dad were separated, his dad was in Alaska, that they stayed with his Uncle Andrew for a while in Columbia City, but he didn't talk much about it. And when I'd ask him about the relatives that were still around, he'd say, we never got on well with those people. And
Interesting.
so I don't know, what the true events are, but
And Andrew then must have been a relative of some sort that they didn't talk about, maybe.
could be.
But he's the one that had the florist business. I know that. Because that's the only one that I knew. That's why I never, when you mentioned Frederick, I had never heard of Frederick, see. So that's probably why.
Yeah, well, it may have also been that if my hunch about there being perhaps an issue of scandal or illegitimacy or something dealing with Frederick, that maybe, they were sort of ostracized from the family, and the family wouldn't have anything to do with them. Who knows?
Possible. That's the way it used to be in those days.
Yeah. So, it's really, really hard to
Well,
tell.
we have pictures of Andrew Sr., I think, and we have some information on that. So with this knowledge, I think maybe we can piece things together.
This is a picture of Frederick. He looks to be like maybe 6 years old. And it's a picture when he was visiting his dad in Alaska. And he's standing on the sod roof of the house that they lived in. Behind him is a handmade sled, and there's snow on the hills behind him. Frederick is wearing a pair of boots that come all the way up to his crotch. And Frederick said that a Mountie had come by to visit, and when people would go inside a house, they'd take off their boots and leave them outside. And Frederick grabbed the boots, clambered up on the roof of the house, and put the boots on. And these boots, since he's only 6, come up as far as his pockets. And it's just a charming picture of Frederick in the Mountie's boots. This is a picture of Frederick's dad dressed up in his Sunday best when he's in Alaska. And he's leaning against a post made from a slender log of this log cabin they lived in. This is a post on the front porch. The thing that's so outstanding to me is that he is wearing like a handbag, the shoulder strap going across his body, and this little leather purse-like thing. I actually have that particular purse. And what it was used for was when you were carrying something valuable, like gold dust or gold nuggets, and were going to go into town, you would dress up and you would carry this purse that you'd carry the valuable stuff in. And so I have the actual purse that's in this picture that was used to carry the gold dust from.